Eclipse Theory Games, a podcast where we bring you the latest in gaming news, indie reviews, and everything else under the sun. My name is Kendall, and I'm here with my co-host,
Tony, aka Stevie Ain't Blind.
Man, listen, I got a story on that one.
I'm a Stevie Wonder trooper. That's
I'm not,
my thing, and
I'm
I
not
consider
mad.
that much better than being a flat earther.
Listen, I ain't here to. I
There's
ain't here
more
to take
evidence
sides.
supporting one of these things than the other, and it's not the flat Earth thing.
I am not here to take sides on it. All I know is I waved at Stevie one time. He came to somewhere that I was, and he did not wave back. So I'm holding in my heart that he was just kind of like, actually unable to see
No,
me.
Stevie
Not
wanted to be
just,
sitting courtside at NBA games. Like
hey
he need
man,
to pay extra money to sit courtside for.
you can hear it better. All right. You get all you can feel the he on some daredevil shit. He got to feel the vibrations on the floor.
He on some
Me.
Daredevil shit. He see it.
Hey, look, man. I ain't gonna speak of, this is Eclipse Theory Games, and we are back once again, episode 46, man. We are getting close to that 50 mark. And I am hoping that it's going to coincide with a very special game release, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get closer to it.
Very important game for me.
Absolutely. I think for all of us, and especially for this year. But yeah, that Metacritic, actually I think we're gonna switch to Open Critic. We might be switching to Open Critic. I want to make that announcement on air, like for the fantasy draft that we did. So
Looking like the more convenient option.
yeah, the scores seem to be aligned pretty much so far because both myself and Carl are on the board, just to give you guys a update on last week's episode. At about a 90. Like I had Yakuza, Like a Dragon, excuse me, Infinite Wealth. And Carl had Tekken 8, and they both scored around the 90. I got to check to make sure that they're still there, but we'll be keeping track of those. And pretty soon, yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be dropping, which is
I guess we
crazy
do
to say.
need to determine it. We're going to stick like 1 week. Whatever the score is after 1 week, that's where we at.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't know how much they fluctuate. You know what I mean? Like
I don't.
after that
I don't
point,
think they do either. But
because I think once they settle in, they can just be settled in. Like we can just kind of let them play out, and once they, depending on how much they keep changing, like we'll keep track of these first two and see how much they change, and kind of determine it from there.
yeah, because I mean, every one of the games that we picked is going to end up with like the incel roller coaster move, where they just downvote the living fuck out of it for no
Yeah.
reason at all.
That's a hell of a way to put that, but I absolutely understand what you mean. Yeah, we're gonna go through ups and downs on shit like this, but we'll see. We're doing it for the first time, and Fantasy Critic kind of makes it simple, which is why we're probably going to be funneling it through Fantasy Critic. We'll probably be setting that up soon, but we'll keep you guys posted on that. For today, though, we have some pros and cons to talk about in the gaming industry right now. Like, there's a lot of interesting announcements happening, a lot of cool shakeups going on as far as like what's being made, what developers are working on what properties, and especially on the Microsoft side. Like we did kind of miss out on the developer direct that happened recently, so we want to touch on some of the things that got announced there. But before we do that, we would be remiss to not take a little bit of time to talk about what's really going on in the industry, which is the fact that there are almost 6,000 layoffs so far this year, and we're at the end of January. Like, that's pretty unacceptable. And
Very unacceptable.
we just had another announcement on that front coming from Microsoft themselves, who recently acquired Activision Blizzard, if you don't remember, for $69 billion. $69 billion.
With a
And they
B.
just laid off 1,900 people, and all those people lost their jobs. So we kind of want to break that shit down. I know we have a lot to get off our chest on that topic, but I don't even know where to start on this one because it's just like the same old story over and over again. More people just kind of being thrown to the wolves because companies need to keep their bottom dollar as high as possible. And it's ridiculous.
So this is where we start on this. And I read this stat like a couple of days ago, or maybe yesterday. We're at the point, and we're not even outside of January as we're recording. We won't even be outside of January when this episode drops.
Right.
We are 60% of the way that we were at the entirety of last year.
Insane.
In less than a month. That's fucking ridiculous.
It is.
You buy some shit out for $69 billion. Like Blizzard and Activision is going to make you money. And I'm speaking for Microsoft on this. Blizzard and Activision is going to make you money. Why are you laying off 2,000 people? For what? So you can report to some shareholder that ain't never picked up a controller and go, hey, look, we're saving money. I mean, yeah, sure, from a business perspective, that's great, but you look like a bunch of assholes.
Like the company culture is just tanking when you make
Like,
moves like that.
like this looks so bad, you can't even go on the back end and go, well, at least they ain't do it over the holidays with like everybody else. That's the silver lining where that people are trying to find it is that at least they
Right.
didn't do it over the holidays, and that's fucked up.
It is. It really is. It's
I don't see a way this gets fixed because there's no legitimate silver lining. Like people always go, well, this will make indie stronger. I'm like, no, it won't because the indies are having some problems too,
yeah,
and like this is a an industry wide thing where this is becoming a problem, and it's not
100%.
going to be that it's going to make the industry stronger. It's going to make the industry weaker because people are going to get disenfranchised with it, and they're going to stop. There's people I follow on LinkedIn. One lady in particular who was like, I'm just not even going to try to be a games writer anymore. She chose to be a substitute teacher. It is something that she enjoyed. You
Yeah.
know, she found out she enjoyed in the time that she was looking for a job. But that's where we're getting is where people who are in it and trying to get back in it are just going to get discouraged and not get in it. And then the people who are graduating college are looking at the last 14, 15 months and they're going, the fuck is the point?
Right. Exactly. And that's really what's going to hurt the industry in the long run. I can tell you from personal experience, like, I've done some games writing before. I've had to take a step back from that for various different reasons, but layoffs can deter people from even jumping into that field. That's hard to get into in the first place. It's hard to even breach this whole industry because it feels like everyone wants to be a part of it, right? Like this is a dream job for so many people. But when you take away the stability, how are you encouraging people to come and this is a job where you have to be a creative. Like we're creating things here. These are worlds that we make. And as much as we want to treat this like a business, it's art. So you need people who can create that art. You need people with the technical expertise to make the art that you love. And it's such a conundrum that those are such rare people. And we just treat them like they're a dime a dozen because there's so many people trying to break in. Eventually you know, quality of life at studios is going to drop off a cliff. It already has. We might see game quality drop off, the way that has because you're going to start to see people hired just because they're like placeholders, like they're available, their bodies to fill a seat.
A breathing.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like so we have to treat this industry like something that we revere and respect, and like the people that help create it and make it what it is matter because to snatch up a whole, I mean, it's like I don't want to hone in on Microsoft entirely. You know what I mean? Like they're not the only ones doing this. We talk all the time about Embracer Group. Embracer Group actually made headlines this week with another round of layoffs. The studio that's creating the last Ronin game, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, they actually
Yep.
just lost like 50% of their workforce. So who knows what's going to happen in that situation? But
It's
it's
wild because it's always the companies that make these really big moves. And that's the sad part. It's like when the Activision, like you said, not to harp on it, but it's the most recent. But when the
yeah,
Activision deal went through, anybody with a brain went, some people about to lose their jobs because
exactly.
that's just how that goes.
Yeah, every time.
And it's like it's at the point now where to want to work in the gaming industry and to actively try to do it mentality wise, you kind of have to be as crazy as a football player.
Right.
Like if
Like,
you're a linebacker and you're a really good linebacker, you're an insane human being. Kind of the same thing at this point with the gaming
like,
industry because it's like you don't know if you're going to make it 6 months in some cases.
100%. Like, like I was saying, speaking of my personal experience, I'm somebody that's kind of pivoted toward wanting to be a creator of games, like trying to go into school and do that stuff, but putting in all that work and trying to get into the industry, I can tell you now, my heart is telling me that I want to make them independently. Like, I don't want to work for anyone. Like, and that's an impossible task. Like, I'm setting myself up for years and years of just building something from scratch if I do that. So is that my only option as far as entering this industry that I love, that I actually have a passion for it and want to make something in? Or do I have to go somewhere, cross my fingers that somebody's going to retain me at the end of the day? You know what I mean? I hear a lot of people talking about how every day, like employees are scared to check if Slack still works because they might just get
Yeah.
laid off. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And that's the other thing. We're not even doing it in a humane fashion. Like you're not giving people a heads up. You're barely even announcing it once it's announced. Like these stories are getting publicized by news articles And then people are sitting on Twitter praying that they're not affected by it. And these are people that we respect.
Oh, and like yo, I'm watching it happen in real time. Like people
Yeah,
literally having to almost like it's a natural disaster. People literally have to tweet, "I'm okay, I'm
right.
good, I made it."
It's, it's
Like
morbid.
that's fucking insane. I mean, it's literally it's become like sports. Like motherfuckers is finding out they get traded because Adam Schefter tweeted it, not because the
Right.
team told them, because
Exactly.
they just happen to be on Twitter at the wrong time. It's the same thing here. People are finding out I might not have a job because Jason Schreiber is tweeting about it.
Right. Right. That's
That's insane to me.
just to and there's always the side of it where we don't know as much as we'd like to know because we're not in the corporate side of the games industry. You know what I mean? Like there's always an explanation behind it. Somebody can rationalize this if you let them sit and talk to you for long enough. You know,
Right.
I'm not on that side of things. I don't know how that works or why that works, but looking at this acquisition and then looking at these layoffs, it just feels like a heartless move. And we have to start like holding people accountable for that.
I mean, it basically is because I mean the rationalization for it is going to be we're trying to save money. Well, you shouldn't have spent $69 billion. How about that? Let's
That's
start there.
that
Did you
amount of
really need to
money.
spend $69 billion on Activision and Blizzard? Like they
That's
make great games.
yeah,
They make
yeah.
some fire. 69 billion. That's what you
You,
needed to put up for this.
that sounds like a rock star price. You know what I mean? Like,
Like I would have been okay if it was Rockstar. It would
yeah,
have still been ridiculous, but
yep,
I get it. Grand Theft Auto 5 is making money like it's nothing. I
yeah.
understand it.
To
Activision and Blizzard, and again, they make great games, but 69 billion?
now
That's like
again,
giving like 300 million to the 12th man on your bench.
yeah, like yeah. It's now, mind you, we say all that without taking into account that Call of Duty is still the monster that it is. I know it might not feel like it, still topping the charts every single year. It's actually insane. Everyone wants
It's
to own
annoying.
that. Everybody wants to own. Yeah, it is. It is.
It's
I
kind
mean,
of
like
annoying.
when you're going over like your chart. I mean, I'm not hating. You know what I mean? Shout out to Call
No,
of
no,
Duty,
like
but
I still play some of them.
yeah, yeah. But when you want something to kind of like be the new hotness, it's going to be Call of Duty 9 times out of 10. And of course, they want to own that. Like everyone wants to own that. What company wouldn't? So you have to, charge a pretty high price. 69 billion feels like a if you're gonna pay it, you better be stable as fuck and not like lay
Right.
off 1,900 people next year
Like
stable.
it's almost like they've been waiting to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they're like,
It
look,
w-
we know this deal coming through. We got to fight it in court, but when we get to the end of this motherfucker,
this
just gotta
legit
do
feels
it.
like somebody, the statute of limitations just ended and you just coming out with all of the bullshit.
Yeah, man,
It's
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 insane.
it is. And we gotta always make time to talk about that, you know what I mean? But I don't want this episode to kind of solely focus on the negative. There's a lot of positive happening in the industry. And there's positive happening with Microsoft too. Some interesting things I kind of want to talk about as well. So, and some of them, unfortunately do revolve around some of these layoffs, but I'll kind of get to that toward the end of this. Before that, I want to kind of jump into, Microsoft's recent developer director they had showed off a handful of games, not a ton of them. They usually do like 4 or 5 games. And the big reveal was obviously the Indiana Jones gameplay that they showed off. So I guess we can start with the biggest thing first, so kind of just trickle our way down to whatever else interests us. But Tony, how'd you feel about the Indiana Jones reveal? They showed that it was first person. Looks cool.
I think first of all, I can't wait. Guys, I love Indiana Jones. I still haven't seen Dial of Destiny yet. I've been a
Mm.
little hesitant on that one just because I'm still scarred from the Shia LaBeouf version.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, but no, I looked at it and this is kind of the best way to do an Indiana Jones game. Like I know that the instinct is to go third person action adventure, kind of like an Uncharted. But the cool thing about Indiana Jones was like doing all of the Indiana Jones shit.
yeah. Being
And I
him, like,
think
yeah,
being him as opposed to like seeing him and just controlling him, being him is way more cool. It's
I
just
agree.
better. On top of the fact, I mean, I think the smart thing that they did was to go with third person cutscenes.
Mhm.
so that you still get to see Harrison Ford's face, and Troy Baker is actually doing, from what I heard in the first trailer, a damn good impression of him.
Yeah, he's doing a phenomenal job. And then
Um,
the camera actually does pan out on some like gameplay moments too, where you can kind of see yourself and watch Indy do his Indy thing.
yeah, and I'm interested in seeing, because like the whip physics are obviously going to be a big thing, and you can see it like in the trailer, and obviously it's early. You can see they're still working it out. Um,
Yeah,
but that's a really, like, they got to get that right, because especially if it's in first person, you like that, you got to nail that shit.
yeah.
And um, if they can just put this in the next trailer, just to ease my mind, if you can't like wrap your whip around a woman and pull her into you, you you gotta go back to the drawing board, because that's like an iconic scene in that shit.
It
Also,
is.
on top of that, if you can't just get fed up and shoot a motherfucker like in the middle of like a cutscene,
I did
that's
see
like
him pull out
that's
a
an
gun.
Easter egg I want. That
Yeah,
like, yeah, because he pulled out a gun, but that's the Easter egg I want, is like dead in the middle of the cutscene. If you just like hit square, just like, or right
the
trigger
quick time
on just
event.
some
Yep.
random shit, you just shoot them.
I need that. It has to
I
happen.
would
It's
love to see that as an Easter egg.
absolutely. But no, I do feel you on the whip physics and everything like that. Like it is the most key portion of the game. If you're making a gameplay focus like this, and if you're making it, simply a shooter, pretty much like a shooter puzzle solver, whatever genre you want to put it into, that's going to be the thing that sets it apart. Like having that whip be able to do all of, and even some of the stuff that they showed in the trailer, like distracting people by cracking it next to them and like running off the other way or whatever. Some of that stuff
Right.
is pretty cool, like so you can tell that they're going in the right direction. I think the first person is a really great choice as well because it helps it become more distinct from Uncharted because that's obviously going to be the thing that it's compared to the most. Ironically, being
Right.
that it's clearly inspired Uncharted. Like I used to, and when I'm describing Uncharted to someone, I'll be like, I'll tell people that it's Indiana Jones, the video game. Now I can't do that, but it kind of sets
Well, if
itself
they fuck
apart.
this up, you'll still be able to do it.
Yeah, I'd be like, it's the good Indiana Jones video game, but I don't see that. You know what I mean? I think this looks pretty cool. I think some of the choices that they made as far as like the aesthetics are really dope. As soon as I started to look at it, I was like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense that you would get Machine Games to do this. Like the
Yeah.
people that made Wolfenstein to make this game set in like Nazi era, you know.
Yeah, it's a perfect match.
Yeah.
What the one thing I'm really interested in is how they handle the place in the timeline, because I
Mm.
think I think I read it was between Raiders of the Lost Ark and shit. Why am I drawing a blank? Temple of Doom.
Temple, yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that's confirmed, like for
I'm pretty
sure,
sure that I saw that as well. It's like they slide it in the timeline there.
but it's got to be like, it's got to be that, like it can't be like, in between like Temple of Doom and fucking uh whatever the Shia LaBeouf version is.
Yeah,
I
nah,
really don't
nah.
like, dog. I don't fuck with that movie at all.
Oh,
I
listen,
love
you are
Indiana
not
Jones. I don't
alone.
fuck with that movie at all.
You are
Uh,
absolutely not alone on that. I promise you
but
that.
yeah, nah. I think they're gonna do a really good job with it. Like I said, they like you said, they nailed the aesthetic.
Yep,
And obviously just hearing that song, like it damn near made me tear up, because that's like a perfect action movie song. The
it
Indiana
really
Jones
is.
theme is like perfect. It's great.
100%.
Um, and yeah, I think, getting obviously Harrison Ford's likeness, getting Troy Baker to do a good impression of him, but it still sounds somewhat original.
Mhm.
Is like Indiana Jones is oddly grounded for all the
Yeah,
fantastical stuff that's in the movies. It's an oddly grounded series,
and
and I think
that's the
that's
main thing I
important
noticed.
to it. Yeah, it's very important to that franchise, where things don't go totally off the rails. And I
Yep,
see a lot of that in this, and I just can't wait to see it like in full.
100%, man. It's going to be interesting. This is Microsoft's next big one for real, and it's coming this year apparently. So we're gonna find out exactly how good it is very soon. But there were some other games that they kind of showed off at the direct. I don't know how much you were able to peep, during your time, but they gave us a little look at Avowed, which is the new game coming from God, why am I blanking on the Outer Worlds developer?
Obsidian.
Obsidian. There you go. I don't know why my brain went completely blank on their name, but The way I always
It's
describe
too close
Avowed,
to Oblivion, and the
it
game is too close to Skyrim.
man, I was literally about to say this is how I describe Avowed. If the Outer Worlds is their, Fallout, Avowed is their Elder Scrolls. It's obviously not a one-to-one comparison, but it's their more fantasy, story driven, that sort of vibe where you have magic and things like that. Of course, this one has firearms, but that's because they're a different ass company, and
Yeah, yeah,
this looks like a different ass game. I really like the aesthetic of it. Like they're going with like a really vibrant color palette where things kind of contrast a lot when you venturing through the world. Um, you get a lot of really, really fast-paced action scenes in the gameplay trailer that they show, where even like the magic is something that you're whipping out there like it's a shot. Like you just pretty much sending like fast-paced ice shots at people basically with your wands, and you can kind of switch between different weapon styles and loadouts. And it looks like they put a lot of thought and care into it. Did you get a chance to check this trailer out?
yeah, man. I mean, we talked about it when we did the draft, or the episode before the draft, when I was talking about like Kingdom Come Deliverance and my backlog and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I like the grounded open world fantasy shit, but I also like the wild ass, like give me powers and let me just rock. And I think, because honestly, I enjoyed the Outer Worlds more than I enjoyed Fallout 4. And
mm,
I'm not one of the people who was like really down on Fallout 4. I understand why people were, but
yeah.
I still liked just the aesthetic. Like Fallout takes itself too seriously sometimes,
I get
and I don't
that.
really need that all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Outer Worlds felt like if Saints Row, like if Volition did a Saints Row version of Fallout,
That is accurate,
a
actually.
little less goofy, but still like in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, yeah. It almost reminds me of like a Borderlands vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
So
mad
I'm
at
with
it.
it.
Absolutely, man. And the fact that there's so much, it kind of when they started to go into the characters talking to each other and like the choices that you get to make, it definitely harkened back to the time I just spent, which just roll credits on Baldur's Gate 3. So I'm all the way about character choice and watching those decisions play out in the different places that you go and things like that. I'm hoping that they go really deep into it because combining that with like a fast-paced, action-oriented combat style and like this explorable world, it sounds like something that could really be dope. So shout out to Avowed. I also wanted to talk about one of the first, I think the first mana game that's coming out in like 17 years, something like that. Visions of Mana actually made an appearance at Microsoft Showcase, which is surprising because you usually don't see a lot of RPGs, especially Japanese developed RPGs, show up at Microsoft shows, which shows you kind of the push that they're going for that style of game. But I think Visions of Mana actually looks really, really dope.
Yeah, they're trying to take this shit seriously.
Yeah, like it's got, it's still got that playful, colorful, cartoonish art style with the cute enemies, but you are beating the fuck out these enemies. Like the combat is actually again pretty fast paced and more like hands on than you might expect when you see a game like this. And I can appreciate that. Like I think this might be one to check out for people that might not even be into the series.
Yeah, I'm a man ahead, so this is automatic cop. Like there's
Man,
there's nothing I needed to see outside of the fact that it existed.
I respect it.
I'm good.
Yeah. It's been a while, you know what I mean? I'm somebody who's kind of not been into the series. That's outside from like Secret of Mana, like classics back in the day. But they have games that you hold up to stuff like Final Fantasy VI, you know what I mean? So
Right.
you gotta pay them reverence anytime they actually pop up on the scene. And let
And
me
we don't get
see.
the Tales series without them.
Yeah, exactly. Like just anything that branches off of Final Fantasy has its own tree and like its own inspirations and everything like that. So I find it just a fascinating like line of games. Let me see what else was there from that showcase.
There's the our history untold, the civilization like joint.
There was, and I don't want to sleep on that because that actually looks pretty dope.
I've been trying for years to get into civilization, which is weird because I love Age of Empires,
Hmm.
but it is a slightly different gameplay style.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
And
Age
actually,
of
I'm the
Empires
same.
feels less like Civilization feels more gamey.
Right.
Um, and I think with Age of Empires, it feels more strategic than
Yeah, you kind
Civ
of
ever did to me.
you kind of get laid out, a gameplay mat where Civilization does feel like you're taking turns and it's almost board game ish.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like I got Civ 6 on my Switch, and it's been sitting in the backlog because I'd be trying to like get into it, and I feel like it's one of them games where if I just it's like Breaking Bad. Like if I power through the first season, I'm good. I just
right.
got to power through the first season.
Yeah, nah, exactly. And like me, I'm still kind of getting my feet under me when it comes to that style of game. You know what I mean? I'm more of a completely open, give me a sandbox to build in type of guy, more so than the more structured gameplay styles that you talk about. But this one actually looks really interesting. I like, everything they're going for with it. So it's always a chance to get back into this style of game whenever they drop a new one.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? One other thing I did want to talk about, they talked a little bit more about Hellblade 2. They gave us a release date, as well as confirming that it's going to be $50, digital only, which is what I kind of want to
Mm,
focus on. Really, really interesting. So it's dropping on May 21st, which is a couple days before my birthday. It's interesting. Right in the heart of the summer, you know what I mean? But the fact that it's going to be so affordable and that they're talking about it being a much shorter game, I really appreciate that actually. I know it might be controversial to some people, but I think we need smaller games at times. Like one thing about the industry, if you look at all the layoffs and everything like that, part of it is probably because of how grand our scope has gotten. Like everything has to be so and so many hours and have this type of budget and like look this good and have this type of fidelity and all these things like that. That costs money. Every little aspect of it costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of people, man hours. This shit is like very, very real. Like it gets very, very serious. So having games come out that are set up like marquee titles like that, and having them be upfront about the fact that they're a little bit shorter than you might expect, they're a little bit cheaper, can kind of set a good precedent. Like this is an experience worth having. It's like if you find out a movie is kind of short, like it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It means they told their story in a certain amount of time. They need more time than that, right? So I appreciate it.
I do not have an issue with the game being shorter. I do not have an issue with the game being $50. I have an issue with it being digital only.
Yeah,
And I'm always gonna have an issue with it. Because like here's the thing. They got this like 75% right. Because we've been like this has been a common refrain for gamers for years. If you're selling the game on a digital store, it should be cheaper than the physical version because
mm,
there are no manufacturing costs, there are no shipping costs. So you could probably shave like $20 off the price off rip. So they got that part right. It went from 70 to 50. Um, it's a shorter game. Like now, just because of the way game prices are going, 50 for a shorter game is reasonable. It doesn't
right.
sound like it because we used to pay 50 for like Grand Theft Auto, but
Yeah,
it's reasonable. The issue is that again, y'all trying to make motherfuckers way too comfortable with not owning shit. And
yeah.
I can't rock with it. I can't.
I
You
feel that.
know, it's just
Especially
it's
since you got people like, people at higher companies like Ubisoft talking about how we should get used to not owning our games and things like that. Like, nah,
yeah,
I can't rock with it.
he can get the fuck out of here with that.
Which might have been taken a bit
That's
out
a
of context.
wild ass shit. That's some wild ass shit to say.
I think it was taken a little out of context. I would have to see the full quote.
Dog,
But
I read the full quote. To me, at least, maybe you take a look at it. But to me, it seemed like he meant what the fuck he said.
and I'm not saying it's completely not what he said, you know what I mean? But that's some crazy shit to say.
But
Like,
see,
no.
it's so wild that you're trying to go like, damn, maybe maybe there's something I'm
Yeah,
missing
I'm
here. Nah, dog.
exactly.
Nah, he just said some wild shit. Like, imagine saying that out loud. Like, you finna charge people $70 for Assassin's Creed 270,
Right.
and hey, you need to get comfortable with not owning your games. Fuck, I'm giving you money for.
Man, and it's like I said, man, it's one of those things where they don't understand the difference between wanting to watch a movie occasionally and wanting to, like I said, a 60, 70 hour experience. Like it's a little bit, I want to own that. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm putting down this money and like investing my time into this game, I wanna actually have the option at least to own it.
I can count on one hand how many movies I've seen more than 7 times.
Right.
Three of them are Lord of the Rings. The
Yeah,
other two are Chronicles of Riddick, which I don't give a fuck what nobody says. That's an incredible fucking movie.
I respect it.
And I'm gonna this one's gonna throw you the fuck off. But the Tom Hanks version of the Lady Killers.
Oh wow. Okay.
I fucking love
Hey.
that movie, man. Marlon was hilarious in it. J.K. Simmons was great. Like, that's a really underrated comedy, and I don't think it got the shine that it did. But that movie was fucking great.
Listen, I'm not mad. It's one of those, it tells me more about you as a person. So I
But
respect that.
the
That's one
point
of
I'm
those
making
choices.
is that I would need at least 7 people to
Yeah,
count on hands how many games I've gone back and replayed,
exactly.
and
Like,
that's over like a decade. Like, I could go back over 10 years and find a bunch of games that I've replayed in an insane amount of times
right.
because I own them. Not because you're telling me this shit might go away in 5 years and the money that I spent on it now means absolutely nothing.
Facts. And
We're gonna
then
get to a point where you're treating games like NFTs, dog. I ain't with it.
the other side of that also is the fact that we have the option to go buy most of the movies and shows that we want to buy and own and go back to whenever we want. Like there are certain shows that I will rewatch every now and then. I was just talking about how, I will go back and revisit something like Mad Men or Breaking Bad or like even something like Avatar, Last Airbender over and over without watching some new shit for years. But
Mhm.
but if I want to watch those shows, I do have the option to go buy like a box set, go buy a DVD, whatever, a Blu-ray, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't strip that option away from me and expect me to be okay with it. Nah, like
Right. And then tell me straight up that I'm stripping, not only am
yeah,
I stripping it away, but you need to be okay with it. No, no,
absolutely not.
I'm not.
That's
And
a
nobody
hard
should.
pass. Now with Hellblade 2, the price being like, or excuse me, the length being about 8 hours long, I feel like this is one of those games that might be able to live in that space. Like if it's an experience, if they're kind of marketing it like that, frankly, I feel like it might. Well, games are not cheap to make. I was gonna say maybe it should be even cheaper than that, but this is a big budget game. Like this is a marquee experience. I don't think you can really go under 50 and still treat it like one of the biggest games releasing on your console. So I get the $50 price tag, but digital only should come with some caveats like lower prices, even lower than $50, in my opinion. So feel you on that.
I think the other thing is that, like, we get really hung up on playtime in
Hmm.
games. Like, for certain shit, it's whatever. Like Baldur's Gate, yeah, that's something you're supposed to put like 250, 300 hours plus in.
Right.
But something like this, you hear 8 hours and then people get all up in arms. I'm like, the average gameplay session is probably like an hour and a half to 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, because I guess as an adult, you're looking at it, if you have other shit to do, not counting days where you got nothing and you able to just sit down and go through a marathon. Yeah, cool.
Hmm.
You could probably pull off 8 hours. But on an average day, you probably only getting an hour and a half to 2 hours in. Now that's 4 days.
Right.
That's 4 days of a new game. That is a solid period of time.
Yeah, you got a
Like
whole
for
experience out
everybody that was shitting on the people that finished Spider-Man 2 in 2 or 3 days, like, the story wasn't really that long.
of it. No, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't. Like, that's another thing. Okay, if you sit down for 4 hours and you got 4 hours, you could probably clear that in 3 days.
Right.
Like, we got to be way more realistic about what we think a long time in gaming really is,
Or what it
and
used
not
to be.
right, or and not make it just so personalized to where, oh well, I have time to sit there for only 2 hours. So how are you finishing it this quick? Well, that person's got different time than you, or vice versa. That's
Right.
just it's how it works. But 8 hours, if you splitting that up into 2 hour chunks, especially for a game like Hellblade 2, which I think ain't gonna be one of them games you just gonna be able to sit down and binge essentially, because that's a heavy fucking experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you gonna get your like $50 for 4 days worth of like a high quality immersive like emotional audio visual experience. I'm with that. That's
I
fine.
think it's pretty reasonable, honestly. And it's probably not something you're gonna want to experience all that many times in life, to be
Uh,
honest.
how like think about it like this: how many times you seen the Passion of the Christ?
Right. Exactly. Like it's gonna
Once.
stick with you.
You ain't never heard a motherfucker say, "Yeah, I watched it a couple times."
Yeah, right. Like
No.
that's what I turn on when I'm about to go to sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nah, you got one of them, and that's it. And then you
Right.
just left with your memories.
Yep. And you might revisit it to re-experience that like bracing, visceral ass reaction you had to it, but that's gonna be an event. Like anytime you go back to that, it's gonna be a thing.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, ain't nobody watching it. Like I watch The Office, 10 times a year. Ain't nobody going back like that.
Hell yeah, exactly. But I'm not, terribly upset at anything about it. So I'm very interested to see how this kind of pans out, what it means for games going forward, because digital only is the only aspect of it that I'm kind of raising my eyebrow at, but I feel like it's being presented as such a different type of game that I'm just curious to see how everything plays out. But I feel like
Buy
honestly,
physical media.
yeah, that's actually a much better place to close it out on. Buy physical media. Make sure that you let these people know that we want to actually own the things that we have, like we enjoy. So we'll leave it there, man. Let us know what games you are most excited for from Microsoft's most recent direct. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you think of Indiana Jones and the decision to go in first person, because I think it looks pretty dope. Honestly, I'm very excited about it. But till next time, I am Kendall. This is Tony, and make sure you keep gaming.